Well, I guess you can call this the B show because my producers are off this week to do a convention. They will be at the Cinema Wasteland Convention in Strongsville, Ohio this weekend at the Best Western Hotel. They will be hosting J.R. Bookwalter's movie, The Dead Next Door, among other things. Trying to think who else is there. I think you got a bunch of people from Pulp Fiction, some zombies from Dawn of the Dead, this new guy who plays Pinhead, whatever, plus films and whatever else they're doing up there. But also, The Mummy and the Monkey will be at, I wrote this down, the Lorraine Palace Theater on April 16th to be involved in the screening of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 with special guest Caroline Williams. Go to www.lorrainepalace.com. Tickets are $25. And I think that the show opens at 5 and goes till midnight. I think there's vendor tables, food, and all that other good stuff. Anyway, as you can see, I'm celebrating my old friend Gary Clark, who sadly passed away a while ago, and I miss him. He was a really good guy. But also today is Roger Corman's 96th birthday. God, from that era, who was really left? Roger, Jonathan Hayes, and Jack Nicholson. All those guys are up in their years. Roger has been responsible for so many careers, and sadly, he's outlived a lot of these people. He was the first guy that gave Charles Bronson a lead role. Also used Lee Van Cleef, Peter Graves. Gave Jack Nicholson his start. Also Jonathan DeMay, Joe Dante, Sid Haig, Jack, tons of others. I mean, you know, it's amazing how many careers were launched through Roger Corman, and we wish him well and we wish him a happy birthday. But let's check some new stuff that just came out here. This is the new Mr. Majestic Blu-ray put out by Kino Lorber, which has, as you can see, the DVD condom, as I call it, the useless slipcover. Transfer is really great, and a good friend of mine, Paul Talbert, who did these two books, Bronson's Loose and Bronson's Loose Again, did the audio commentary on it, which is well worth a listen. Plus the transfer is great. Along with Bronson starring is perennial heavy Alateri, who was the Turk in The Godfather, and was also in Sam Peckinpah's The Getaway as the heavy, and Deadly Trackers, I believe, too. Great character actor. Unfortunately, he got himself wrapped up in drugs and alcohol and passed away at age 47. Linda Crystal is also a co-star in the film, as she went on to TV's The Big Valley, and perennial character actor Paul Koslow, who was all over the place in the 70s, is in it. So great film, well worth checking out. Also, we're on Kino Lorber here. They also put out the extended cut of Fistful of Dynamite with James Coburn and Rod Steiger, directed by the great Sergio Leone. There's a backstory to this film. Leone and Eli Wallach had struck up a friendship during the filming of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Leone had promised Wallach a role in his next film. So this film was actually I saw this film under a different title, Duck You Sucker, which I guess didn't work, because about a month later it was re-released as Fistful of Dynamite, and I didn't know it was the same film and went to see it at a drive-in. But be that as it may, what happened was Eli turned down a role to take the role that eventually went to Rod Steiger in Fistful of Dynamite, which caused a rift between Eli and Sergio, because Eli was a little tweaked that he didn't get the role, but the problem was that Paramount was backing the picture and had Rod Steiger under contract and gave the role to Steiger. Not that Steiger was bad in it, but, it would have been, Eli had that whole Mexican bandit persona down pat, and would have been interesting to see how he took it. But sadly, we'll never know that. Also co-starred James Coburn, who was one of the guys that Leone had considered for the secondary role and for a few dollars more that eventually went to Lee Van Cleef. Coburn was interested, but at the last minute wanted more money, so that didn't happen. But this is a really huge, great adventure film set during the Mexican Revolution, and Steiger as a bandit is reluctantly pressed into service as a revolutionary. And Coburn's character is an Irishman who was basically an explosive expert, between, Ireland and Great Britain when they were having their wars and stuff. So, I forgot what year this thing was out. 1971. I think after that, I believe it was Once Upon a Time in the West and Once Upon a Time in America. Then that was all Leone wrote. But all in all, a great, great action film. Another little favorite just popped up. This one's on, I don't know, it's Warner Archives. It's not an MOD deal. It is a Blu-ray. It's a legit Blu-ray, The Green Slime from 1968. Starring Richard Jekyll, Robert Horton, and Luciana Paluzzi. Interesting thing happened in 1968. I was in high school, and there was a class trip over to New York. And a bunch of us cut out from what we were supposed to be doing and wound up on 42nd Street. And I remember walking past the theater, which, as I explained in a couple other things, we had these huge plywood mock-ups of things out there, but they also had it for the green slime, the slimy green tentacle monsters and space guns and all the other stuff. I didn't see it over there then because we were headed to Hubert's Museum and Freak Show to shoot 22s in the shooting gallery in the basement. Gun shooting, not drug shooting. They had surplus World War II 22 rifles there. You shot down tin ducks and stuff like that. This was, a Japanese production. Richard Jekyll went over there. He did a couple things, as far as these pictures go. The weird part is, this asteroid was about to collide with Earth, and they sent these astronauts up there to plant charges to blow it up. If it sounds suspiciously like the plot of Armageddon, you got it. It is. Maybe that was the inspiration for the film Armageddon. I don't know, but anyway, they set their little explosives up there, but there's these little bubbling things of green slime. And of course, one scientist up there has to take it, and the beaker is yanked out of his hands because it was, I think it was Robert Horton as the commander, didn't want to bring the stuff back, but when he splashed it, a little bit landed on the uniform, and it was taken back on the ship, a la, whatever, how many space films were shot bringing some kind of weird-ass bacteria on a ship. Well, anyway, these things morph into these one-eyed tentacle creatures which feed off electricity and are actually played by Japanese school children. It's an epic film. It had more impact back on '68 because we didn't have the CG effects and things like that. But actually a cool little film and well worth picking up on, the Warner Archives Blu-ray. Richard Jekyll was a very busy character actor, and sadly never really got his due. It seems like the brass ring eluded him, and I had already, done a segment of Grindhouse Purgatory about Richard. It's just, sad the way it ended up. He had melanoma from, they believe it was getting a sunburn over in the Philippines, and it went into his bones. And, basically, I think he passed away at age 71, which is a shame because he was such a gifted and great actor, and nobody had a bad thing to say about him. He just was that cool. Yeah. And another guy I missed terribly on screen. But, okay. Bringing it around, Death Game was just released by our friends at Grindhouse Releasing with the little meat cleaver keychain in there. Great 4K restoration from the original camera negative here. Claustrophobic little film, pretty much has, it's a three-person act. It's Sandra Locke, Colleen Camp, and Seymour Kessel. These two girls wind up over at Seymour Kessel's residence on some kind of pretext to get in, and then there's, everybody wants a three-way. Well, guess what? This three-way turns out horribly wrong. And as someone who was involved in a three-way once in my life that basically had to have a hazmat team come in and clean out the hotel room, I can sympathize. But, great transfer, very creepy movie, and I don't even know if it's still available because it was a limited run, so I would go to Grindhouse releasing.com and see if you can pick yourself up a copy. Another thing here, I don't know if this is even available, I just remembered it. This was pretty much the last thing my buddy Jack Ketchum wrote, I Am Not Sam, co-written with his buddy Lucky McKee. Not sure if this is available anymore, but this is quite twisted and perverse, and that's all I'm going to say about it, because Jack had this really twisted psychosexual side to his writing, and it comes out pretty much in I'm Not Sam. Also, a friend of mine tipped me off to this. Bert Gordon is selling his autobiography online for $25, signed and shipped, which is well worth it, because Bert talks about every movie he ever made. He was king of the rear projection monsters, and actually is still around today. I might have done this one before, but again, Spaghetti Western Digest, this one is number 4. I contributed to this. My good buddy Mike Haas puts this out, and it's chock full of all kinds of spaghetti Western goodness, so check this one out too. And then we have our, well, let's say not so good stuff. I picked this up because Gold Dust, or Dustin Rhodes' autobiography, which unfortunately was released by the WWE, which pretty much, considering what Dustin, had done in his early career, and considering who his father was, and considering who he worked with, all this thing seems to be is him just putting over what a great guy Vince McMahon is. As opposed to John Moxley's book, Mox, which I don't have a copy of right here because I read it and really didn't hold on to it that much, and it's not a knock on Mox. It's just that where Dustin is putting over how wonderful McMahon is, Mox is putting over what a dirtbag McMahon is. And the interesting part of Mox's book is it goes into really detail about his training with with others and things like that. But it sort of just jumps right into the WWE AEW mix, where I know that John was in death matches in CZW. I know that he was, before called up to the WWE, was going to get involved in a program with Homicide on East Coast Independence, but he got called up before then. So, hey, the book's worth the read, but like I said, it was worth reading just to me for the technical aspect of it, training and all that. But I really wanted to hear some stories about working with certain people like Nick Gage and other guys from CZW and Homicide, so that sort of missed. All right, I'm going to be a scumbag here. Of course, we know this is published by my former publisher. It's called Exploitation Nation, and I'm not going to even candy coat any of this shit. This magazine was created solely because Grindhouse Purgatory worked, and I guess they felt they had to try to emulate it. And when they did that, their focus became on that and not what Grindhouse Purgatory was doing, which is pretty much the reason Grindhouse Purgatory is no longer in publication. I don't understand where people come from, and exploitation means to exploit something. And this magazine got a negative review, one negative review on Amazon, and they went apeshit all over Facebook calling this guy a Nazi and this and that and the other thing. And he simply said that I don't find anything exploitive in this magazine. And actually, there isn't nothing exploitive in this magazine. It's pretty much pablum, where, I come off with a harder edge of certain things. They approach this junk, for lack of better words, from a cerebral level, which really doesn't work. And like I said, there's been some shit said around the internet, and I really don't give a fuck anymore, because basically they're trying to emulate what I did, and it ain't going to work. And actually, the magazine should be called Constipation Nation, because it's movies that nobody would give a shit about. You can't write about, anybody can write, claim they're writing about grindhouse stuff, this and that and the other thing, but when you were born in the 70s, the early 70s, 70 to 73, whatever, you honestly never set foot in the grindhouse. So please, don't try to write about stuff that you have no clue how it worked, how exploitation worked or any of this stuff. Because, you know, if you never set foot in the grindhouse and you never set foot on 42nd Street, you honestly don't know how things worked back then and how, you know, different things were then than they are now. Which would bring me to this book, The Princess of 42nd Street, which I might have said something about before, but if you're interested in anything about 42nd Street, you ain't going to learn shit reading this, because she was Marty Hodas's daughter, and enough stuff's been written about him that you're not going to learn anything new other than this chick was sent to a fat farm and supposedly abused and exposed to all this horrible shit, this and that and the other thing. It's just a whiny deposition. Anybody really wants to read it, hey, PM me or email me at grindhousepurgatory@gmail.com, and I pay $20-something for it. I'll give it to you for $10 just to get it out of here. It's that bad. So that's what we got for today. Hope everybody enjoys the weekend and checks things out, and we'll see you on the flip side. So until then, this is 42nd Street Pete saying thanks for subscribing, thanks for tuning in, and as I scratch my dog's ears, because she just cost me $500 in medicine, we'll catch you on the flip side.